Hey nerdy knitters! When you're a newer knitter, there is so much to remember: how to knit, how to purl, how to cast on, bind off, all those increases and decreases and stitch patterns, what's stockinette and garter stitch. There's so much to keep track of. And on top of that, you have to remember which side is the right side of your work and which side is the wrong side, which would be easy if you knew what the pattern was supposed to be. But we're going to tackle all of that today. We're going to talk about that right side and wrong side, exactly what they mean, and exactly how you can figure out where you are in your pattern if you can't quite decipher what's going on those knitting needles. But before we jump in, I just want to say, hey, I'm Tanya here at Nerdy Knitting. I'm a certified knitting instructor and a knitwear designer, and my goal is to help you become a confident, adventurous knitter. The first thing we need to do is define what right side and wrong side means. You'll often see them abbreviated as RS and WS. Now, right side refers to the public side of your work, the side everybody's going to see. The sweater I'm wearing, this is the right side, the side people see. The wrong side would be the inside of the sweater, the non-public side that nobody gets to see. Now, even reversible patterns like a garter stitch scarf, in the pattern, they will have right side and wrong side rows, just to make it easy to keep track of where you are in the pattern, even though the fabric itself might be completely reversible. Now, the right side and wrong side rows are going to differ depending on the fabric itself. For example, with stockinette stitch, the sweater I'm wearing right here is knit in stockinette stitch. We have all of these columns of little V's, all of those stitches. The reverse side of that is called reverse stockinette. So you can see they're very different, and there are an obvious right side and wrong side row to this stitch pattern. So right away, if you look at your pattern and you can see that you're knitting in stockinette, then you know that those columns of little V's, that's the right side of your work. And the side with all the purl bumps, that's the wrong side of your work. But sometimes reverse stockinette can be used as the right side of the work, depending on the pattern. So you'll have to look at the pattern, really look at the pictures to see what kind of fabric is being created and if it's reverse stockinette instead of stockinette on the outside. Like this example here, Andrea Mowry's Weekender sweater. Now this sweater is knit in stockinette, but the outside or the right side of the sweater is actually the reverse stockinette side of the work. One other thing, sometimes people confuse this side of stockinette with garter stitch. If you look at them side by side, you can probably see the difference, but sometimes you just see one of them at a time and you can't tell which is which. But it's a good idea to really start to understand those different fabrics and look at the difference. Garter stitch is reversible. There is no stockinette on the other side of that, but reverse stockinette obviously has stockinette on the other side. And speaking of garter stitch, it can be a little tricky because this one is reversible. So if you're working on a project that's in garter stitch, knowing that both sides of the fabric look exactly the same, we're going to have to look at some other clues, which we'll get to in a minute, to help you figure out which side is the right side and the wrong side. Other reversible fabrics include different ribs: knit 1, purl 1 rib, knit 2, purl 2 rib, seed stitch. Those are all reversible fabrics. So we have to look at other things to figure out which side is the right side and which side is the wrong side. And while we're talking about the different fabrics, it's a good idea to look at your pattern. There'll be lots of pictures included. If it's something you found online, look at the pictures on the website as well. Scroll in close to see what that fabric is supposed to look like. And once you figure out which side is the right side, I like to put a locking stitch marker right on the front of my work, especially if it's a reversible fabric where it's hard to tell. If there's that stitch marker on the front, it helps me figure out where I am in my pattern. Now, what if you still can't tell based on the fabric of the project? Look at the other stitch patterns that are in the piece. For example, I knit this shawl. It started in garter stitch, but then it included sections of lace, and they had obvious right side and wrong side rows. Or perhaps you're working in garter stitch, but you're working in different stripes of color. Most of the time you want to keep those color blips where you change colors on the back of the work. So the obvious right side row is the really seamless color changes from one color to another, and all of those little blips, they're probably on the wrong side rows. Now, if the other fabrics in your pattern aren't giving you a clue about which side is the right side or the wrong side row, you can look at other things in the pattern as well, specifically shaping, if you're using increases and decreases. If you work a knit 2 together on the right side row, it's going to lean off to the right. So look for those stitches where you've worked increases or decreases and try to figure out where they go in the pattern. If you worked a knit 2 together on the right at the beginning of the pattern, so it's right along the right side edge, then look for those decreases and make sure they're on that right side edge, and you'll know that's the right side of your work. Another thing you can do when you're casting on your project is to pay attention to where the yarn tail is. Different cast on methods put that tail in different places. If you work the knit cast on or the cable cast on, it's going to put it right at the right edge after you cast on. So if you're starting with a right side row right away, then you'll know that that cast on tail is on the right side. So that's one thing you can do when you first cast on your project, is to pay attention to that yarn tail and see where it is, and that will help you remember where you are in your pattern, whether you're on a right side row or a wrong side row. And sometimes you can choose which side is the right side and the wrong side of your work. If it's a reversible fabric and there's no shaping involved at all, say it's a garter stitch scarf, then you can choose which side is the right side and which side is the wrong side. It's completely up to you. Another thing you can do while you're working on your project is to keep track. Use a row counter. There's little ones that you can stick right on your knitting needles and keep track of where you are with your rows. As you finish a row, you can click another number, or there's little electronic ones you can put on your finger, or you can check off each row as you finish it if you have printed out your pattern. These are all great ways to keep track of where you are as you're working. So the best thing you can do is really look at those fabrics, look at the stitches you've created, your increases and decreases, really try to understand what's going on as you're knitting. That will make you more confident as you proceed. Now, if you're confused about reading these stitches and understanding what's happening in your fabric, then I have a free download that you can print out and refer to. It will walk you through some of the basic stitch patterns, even a basic stitch itself. Now, if you have a tip to share that will help people figure out where they are in their knitting pattern, I would love to hear about it. Please leave me a comment and tell me about it. And if you are looking for more tips to help you with your knitting, be sure to go check out those comments and see what other knitters have to say. And if you're looking for more helpful advice about understanding your knitting patterns, check out this video right here.